Hey guys, Coach Colin in the house. Welcome to the Coach's Corner. We're at Module 2 and we're talking about Phase 1 loading. And I'm here in my car because I'm going to, shortly if they let me get away with it, I'm going to walk you through the supermarket and kind of show you the foods that I recommend you load on, the foods that I choose when I would do my rounds of ATG and load. The loading process is extremely important. You have to, basically, your body's already an effective fat storing machine. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a weight problem. However, that fat is it's stuck in those storage spots all over your body, and it's that fat that in those areas that you call your trouble areas, your hips, your thighs, your back, your belly, your under your arms. I mean, there's basically fat everywhere. There's a layer of fat everywhere, and people don't realize how important Phase 1 loading is. It's just not a 2 days where you just eat whatever you want just for the fun of it. It actually has a physical and psychological component to it. So if people don't realize that ATG, when you put ATG in your body, it mobilizes fat stores. But in order for it to find and know exactly where to pull those fat stores from, you first have to show it how your body stores fat. That's why during the loading process, you're taking in your low dose of ATG, and then you go for the next 24 to 48 to 72 hours eating everything under the sun. Now, some people think loading is just having a real fattening breakfast, a fattening lunch, and a fattening dinner, and a couple of snacks in between. Believe it or not, you actually will burn a lot of those calories throughout the day. Each and every one of us has our own basal metabolic rate, called your BMR. If you slept all day and never got out of bed, depending on your height, your size, and your gender, and how much muscle you have on you, you would burn anywhere from 1,500 to 3,000, 4,000 calories a day just if you slept all day. That's what keeps your metabolism and your body weight at its normal natural weight. Now, if you overeat consistently, so say you're a woman, say 5'2", and your natural body weight is 125 pounds. Your basal metabolic rate, your calorie intake would be around 1,400 calories. And that's as long as you ate 1,400 calories a day, your body would stay pretty much at that weight. Now, if you ate more than that more frequently, then your body would start to store those excess calories if you're not burning them off with some sort of exercise. Now, conversely, if you undereat, you actually will cause your body to store fat by going into starvation mode. So say you're the same 5'2" woman and your natural body weight is 135, even though you may weigh 190, the bottom line is you're undereating. If you're undereating the amount of calories, the minimum amount of calories your body needs to maintain its weight, you actually will trigger the starvation mode, and it tells the body to store those excess calories you're not eating. So say you were supposed to eat 1,500 calories a day and you're only eating 12, then every day you would store an extra 300 calories. People don't realize a lot of the overweight clients I have, they swear to me they don't eat a lot. It's not like they binge and purge and they freaking constantly stuff themselves all day long. Many of them undereat. So the reason why this loading process is so important is because you literally have to show the HG hormone where you store fat on your body. So when it's time to cut your calories and we put you on that 550 to 750 calorie low calorie diet, your body will pull from that storage to make up the different calories you need for your basal metabolic rate. I hope that makes sense. Now, because ATG is so effective at burning calories, if we add a little bit of activity, so now you're not sleeping, you're actually walking around, you're going to work. At work, you have to walk from here to there, you're burning those extra calories. Now you're getting every bang for your buck. So every extra calorie you burn, you're actually being able to utilize that and release that from your fat stores. So that's why when we add some exercise into your Phase 2, now we're kicking up your basal metabolic rate. We're taking all those extra calories you get that are flowing into your system from the HCG hormone, and now we're even tapping into more of your fat stores, allowing you to release that half a pound to a pound to a pound and a half a day, depending on your size, gender, and muscle mass. Okay, so the loading process is important, but now what you do during the loading process can make a big difference. A lot of people are actually almost always protein deficient. Most people in their American diet don't take enough protein. Most heavily obese women and men that don't take enough protein in. So if you start loading and all of a sudden you're having burgers and steaks and lobsters and all this fancy food because you think it's my death row meals, you may wake up actually losing weight instead of gaining weight. So we always recommend that the fats you choose, the foods you choose, are high in fat, highly processed, because there's going to be a lot of sodium in there, high sugar, and highly caloric. This is the time to have the pasta with the Alfredo sauce and the donuts and the cookies and the crackers. And you want to make floating we call it gorging, a non-stop event kind of throughout the day. In other words, if you have breakfast and you don't do anything for a couple hours, and you have lunch, you don't do anything for a couple hours, that time in between where you're not still flooding the body full of calories, you're actually burning those calories. So you're kind of going up and going back, going up and going back. I can tell you that I have people that have the worst time ever trying to put on 6 pounds if you're a woman and 10 or more pounds if you're a man. They swear they're eating everything under the sun for 2 or 3 days, and they wake up 2 or 3 pounds up. Now, there are some people out there that are hard gainers, but the majority of you are eating sporadically, giving a lot of time in between for your body to burn those calories. So I recommend you have cookies and crackers and chips and things you can just constantly mindlessly eat. Like if you're watching TV or you're going in a movie, you could mindlessly eat these things and keep the caloric intake up. So I'm going to stop this video now. I'm going to take you into the grocery store, and I'm going to point out some of the things that I would choose to load on to make sure that I maximize the fat gaining process, maximize the fat storing process, and make sure I get through phase 1 loading effectively. Now, if you've never done this before, it may sound like a fantastically fun time to be able to eat whatever you want with no limitations on quantity or quality. But psychologically, you realize you can get sick of eating junk food. And that's kind of where we want you to be. At the end of the 2-day process, and sometimes a 3-day process, we want you to literally be miserable physically and emotionally, that all these foods you think you could never live without, you actually can't stand to look at another peanut or candy bar or piece of candy. All right? Once you get to that process, when 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, when you think you're craving something, you're going to be able to go back to this moment and go, remember how you felt when you had that last candy bar or that last piece of chocolate cake or that last donut? It almost made you sick. And you realize, no, I don't need that. Because your body's going to feel so good. It's going to start to churn like a fine-tuned machine. Your energy level is going to be up. You're going to get your sense of taste back, your sense of smell back. You realize you've been dulling your senses all this time with all these chemicals and all this junk food. I often say that happens all the experiments and all the rounds I've done throughout the last 11 years. It's almost uncanny that within about 10 days in, I go, man, the food tastes so good. Why don't I eat like this all the time? Whenever you start returning back to refined sugars, you start to dull your taste buds. You start to realize that food, you don't really get the flavor of foods. You don't realize how good vegetables and proteins and fruits taste, how good they taste when you haven't dulled the senses. So I'm going to show you, we'll go back in and show you. When we come back, we're going to finish up the phase 1 process, things to think about, things to get your mind right about, how to prepare yourself for success as you move into phase 2, and we work on you achieving the body of your life. I'll see you real soon. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, so I'm in the grocery store, and I am going to go tell you what I do normally. I go to loading, and since I can't seem to turn the camera back and forth as I'm videotaping, I come here, and the first place I'm going to stop, usually like 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, it's funny that I'm going to have a dozen donuts. I'm going to start by filling it with glazed cinnamon rolls. I mean, I have a dozen of these. I eat all by myself. By the time that I leave the store, I've had probably, by the time I get in the car, I've had 2 of them. I have 2 more with my coffee, and then I'll have them throughout the day. Hawaiian bread, Hawaiian rolls. Those are my go-to things. They're usually a big loaf of Hawaiian bread. I'll eat that with butter. I minimize protein. I'll probably get a chocolate cake of some sort over here in the cake section, right there. And then I'll head over to the chips. It's probably the only time you'll see me drink a soda throughout the year during the loading process. And then we have ice cream. So we'll go get ice cream down there. And candy. Where's the candy section? Cereals, cookies, crackers, and candies. So chips. And, oops, sorry, sorry. The candy section, I would get Red Vines, big pack of red vines, and milk does for the movies. And I would get like a big bag of, believe it or not, like a big bag of M&Ms. You gotta eat this whole thing in 2 days, non-stop. And the reason what makes it cool, because when you're loading, you want to just have stuff you can grab and just munch on while you're sitting there on the couch watching TV. I definitely recommend, oh, here we go, the chips. I definitely recommend, so I have chips, I have popcorn, cereal. I definitely recommend that you don't plan on going anywhere or doing anything, because you will not feel like going anywhere. And that's it for the grocery store. If you leave the grocery store and you're not embarrassed when you go through the checkout process that you have all that shit in your that stuff in your shopping cart, then you have not done enough damage. Go back and add some more stuff. I'll see you in the next video. All right, so you just got out of the store with me. You kind of saw some of the foods that I would choose on loading days. Now, it wasn't ideal because I wanted to be able to flip the camera back and forth. But I wanted to get an idea that when I go to the grocery store, the things that I'm seeking out, I'm looking for things that I can munch on throughout the day, continuously having some small source of snacks or sugar intake or high calorie intake foods. I have my staples, my morning staples of the dozen donuts throughout the day. And then of course the pizza and the pasta and the other meals. I'll have the bigger, larger meals throughout lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if you will. But the point is not to have a big, huge meal, because it usually will make you more lethargic and make you want to sleep and snack. It's about having smaller meals that are highly caloric, high in fat, high in sugar, high in starch. You want to minimize protein. You want to make sure that the loading process is effective, because if you don't do it correctly, you can actually gain weight during the day and then lose it throughout the night, and you start the next morning and you're almost back to zero. If you're a woman, from anywhere between the size, from 5 foot to 5'6", 5'7", you're gonna want to gain around 6 pounds. If you're 5, 7, 8, and to the 5'10" or 6 foot, you want to get closer to men's numbers and get 8 to 10 or 12 pounds. The more fat you can store during this process, the more weight you're going to release, especially in the first week. But it's also going to make it easier for your body to tap into these fat stores for a longer period of time. If you don't load effectively, what you can find will happen, it can take up to 10 days for your body to actually find your fat stores, meaning you may be hungry, you may be fatigued, you may have cravings throughout that first week to 10 days, and that can make it difficult for you to stay on point. This protocol works exactly as it's laid out. It's the most scientific process I've ever seen, where it actually does exactly what it says it will do if you actually follow it to the letter. Many of you have failed in the past because you did not take phase one seriously. You kind of loaded a little bit, you did a half-ass job at it, you gained a few pounds. Women especially, you have challenges sometimes gaining the weight, even wanting to gain the weight. You're already grossed out where you're at this point, so putting on 6 to 10 pounds and feeling the way you're going to feel is not something that everyone wants to volunteer to do, but it's absolutely necessary. Once your mindset is at the point where you realize that all these foods you thought you couldn't live without, that you've been sneaking bites of all this time, the kind of snacking that kind of got you to where you are now, you're going to realize that how much damage it can do, how lousy you can feel. Some of you guys have any kind of autoimmune disease or arthritis or joint pain or inflammation are going to feel physically worse during these first 48 to 72 hours. The loading process is going to exacerbate those injuries or those ailments, and it's just going to make it a little uncomfortable. But the point is, the good news is once you're in phase 3, within the first 3 or 4 days, the detoxing process happens. You release all that stored fat, and you'll start to feel better. And by the end of the first week, you'll start to feel like $1,000,000. So follow the process, load effectively. If you wake up the next morning, say you did your best loading, you thought you did your best loading, and you're unsure how well you did psychologically and emotionally as well as physically, if you have leftover food, say for example, I told you I love donuts during the loading process. I don't eat them very much throughout the year. Rarely do I have them. But so when I load, that's where I kind of overindulge. My test is if I got up the next morning, say I loaded for 2 days, I'm already distended and feel bloated. But if I could have another donut, if I looked at a donut and didn't automatically want to throw it away or just feel disgusted by it, that means I still have not done the loading process effectively. You may have gained sufficient weight, but psychologically, that still looks good to you. If it still looks good to you, that means you're not ready to move into phase 3. You're going to want to cut corners. You're going to want to go, oh, I did enough. This is good enough. Let me move into it. I'm telling you that to increase increase your odds of success and really releasing fat quickly, doing that extra day, getting past your ego, getting past your laziness, getting past wanting to get into the fat loss phase faster, will actually hurt you if you skip this point, if you skip that extra day. So I encourage you, if you can look at those foods and you still have the leftovers and you don't want to throw them in the garbage, you want to hold on to them for possibly an emergency meal someplace, or you want to hold on to your ice cream and stick it in the back of the freezer in case you have a weak moment and you want to have it and crave it, tells me you haven't done the loading process effectively enough, and you need to continue to do it another day if necessary. I think lastly, you realize that you are preparing yourself for the longest phase coming up, which is the fat loss phase. For many of you, there's the old information out there that makes Ace Body for Life kind of shredded past these old myths, that you're thinking that you only can do it for 26 days or 43 days, and then you have to stop and go on. I've taken people 120, 160 days straight to maximize their fat loss and to get them to their goal while they were mentally and emotionally and physically fired up for the process. I realize it makes no sense to stop the protocol prematurely if you haven't reached your goal. Momentum is your biggest asset. And so as you're doing phase 1 loading and you realize you're doing all this preparation, all this loading, all this gaining of weight, the storing of fat, it's preparing you for the desert, okay? And that you may be on this for 6, 12, 16 weeks. For some of you, longer than that, if you have large amounts of weight to lose. But this is the thing. This is one thing I can promise you. There's nothing I've seen since this protocol, nothing since I found it, and nothing since the last 11 years that will guarantee to take you to your natural body weight. As you heard me mention in the previous video, some of you have never seen your natural body weight. Some of you have no clue what that is. When I ask people sometime, what do you think your ideal weight is? And you may be a 5'2", 5'3", and the reason why I keep saying this 5'2", because that's the majority of my clients are women between 5'1" and 5'5", anywhere from 160 to 230 pounds. And so a lot of these times they've been carrying that weight for a long time. And I ask them what their ideal weight is, and they just want to get into the 100s if they're in the 200s, like the high 100, 170, 180. I'm like, so you think your small frame should still be carrying 160, 170, 180 pounds? And when I tell them their ideal weight is closer to, depending on their size, if they're that 5-foot person or 5'5" or 5'3", it can be anywhere between 110, 115 at their low to 125 to 130, 135. They're blown away. A lot of men, they don't realize this will take them from where they're at right now. If you got the dad bod like I did, the belly and the boobs, and you're carrying a lot of belly fat. Number one, the belly fat is dangerous. It actually, that is where you store most of your disease. And that's when you see men that have type 2 diabetics or full-blown diabetes, they carry a lot of that in their belly, a lot of that weight in their belly. It also shows that you have a higher level of estrogen than you have testosterone. So you can actually go from that dad bod to looking like an athlete and looking fit and lean and shredded. You have to put in the work. You have to put in the work in the gym, but the combination of working out with this protocol can do wonders for both men and women if you're willing to follow it every step of the way. So now you're going to be moving into phase 2. I wanted to go through phase 1 with you. If you have any questions about any of these phases, you can always leave it in the Q&A section, and we can always talk about it on our live calls. But I want you to realize that phase 1 loading is serious. You got to take it seriously. You got to do it deliberately. You have to. Your goal is to gain weight, store fat, and break your psychological bond to some of these foods you think you can't live without. And once you've done that successfully, you're ready to move to phase 2, the fat loss phase, where you're going to be on this for as long as your body needs to get to the body of your life. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Welcome to Coach's Corner in the car today. And who knows what the next one's going to be. God bless.